Hi, I'm Lisa Andria, Transformation Life Coach. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast, where guests share their inspiring stories of leaping out of their comfort zone with confidence and power and into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's listen to their life-changing stories so that we can all learn how to gain the courage to take a leap of faith into a life that we love so that we can all be Ladies Who Leap. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to Ladies Who Leap podcast. The guest today is Johanna Derbolowsky, international speaker and best-selling author of the book, The Transformation Promise. Helps audiences and clients to overcome their own limiting patterns in business and life to move forward with confidence. Her 5-step program, the 5 W's to healing and success, has empowered her clients to see the bigger picture with clarity and make choices they are proud of. She also helped professionals worldwide to be more effective using their own innate psychic abilities, from identifying hidden agendas to underlying issues not visible at first. Ms. Derbolowsky is the developer of the Quantum Heart Field Experience. She is a life and business coach, recognized metaphysical teacher, and has been on the forefront of healing and transformation. Based in Southern California, she speaks and teaches in the US and Europe and has a virtual office for private clients. Welcome, Johanna.
Well, I am delighted to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. We actually met through a mutual business coach, and there's a community of coaches, right? That's how we met, I think.
That's how we met.
Yeah. So now we have a bunch of mutual coaching friends, and it's just a great community. And I'm so glad we met. In fact, we had a really nice lunch not too long ago, and it was just a great conversation. So I'm going to pretend like I don't know anything about you because I would love to have your listeners hear all about your life and story. So the one thing I was going to start with was, how did you come into the metaphysical teaching work?
Well, I was born into the metaphysical world, and the teaching came from, I had a wonderful teacher on psychic development and how to be psychic, and he moved away and left me his workshops and classes. So that's how I started teaching that.
So you didn't have to make like a leap into doing it. It was something that you started with it in your life right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I remember you had spoken about even your family was very much into this work. Am I correct in that, remembering that right?
Yeah, I mean, they were also in the medical field, so they were in one foot in both worlds,
Which is,
but also very spiritual.
and because we're talking about what generation? That was like in the 50s and 60s?
Well, I was born in the 60s, so
Yeah.
60s, 70s, but they were, always in that field.
Yeah, that's really something, people that were ahead of the world, really, in a sense, I would think. There weren't a lot of people that were into metaphysics and all this type of work way back then. There was probably a very small community. So that was really neat that uh, that you had that exposure at a young age to that type of work. So, because I mean, I do feel your work is fascinating, especially the part about helping professionals use their own innate psychic abilities. Does that mean that everyone has psychic abilities, and how do you tap into that?
Everybody has psychic abilities. I mean, that's part of who we are. We all have intuition, but we are really good at talking ourselves out of it. So we've been with science sort of coming up, and people not really wanting to be seen. That's another fact. So we try to close that part off for ourselves.
And how do you
But
how do you help them tap into it?
you just have to learn to trust your inner knowing again, and you have to trust your inner seeing again. And that takes a little bit of practice, depending on how far away you've moved from it. But I think altogether it is becoming really important now, because we are bombarded with kind of fake information all the time. We don't look natural anymore because we do all sorts of things to hide it. At least in Los Angeles, when you walk around, people don't have that many facial expressions anymore. Or politicians don't have that either. So we can't rely on seeing who they are by their outer expressions. So if we want to be a little bit faster in getting to know them, we have to rely on our inner seeing and seeing soul to soul, so to speak, or spirit to spirit.
Interesting. So I know we talk a lot, I've talked a lot about intuition. And does intuition come into this process? I mean, as you were talking, and I kind of understanding what you're saying, but is that part of that?
Yeah, intuition is the same thing. That's the inner knowing of something.
Yeah.
So you have your intuitions, your inner knowing, then you have your clairvoyance, which is seeing things that are not obvious to everybody. And that is what we see and interpret is something we learn as babies. So
Mm.
people that are born without eyesight and then learn to see through surgery, later have their eyesight restored, they can't make sense of anything they see. They have to learn to see. It's actually recommended to put them in a preschool type environment to learn with bright colors and easy shapes. So we learn what we see, and we learn to see just the outer stuff. That's what we're taught. So we have to relearn to see the other things that are around that are more subtle, like people's auras and energies and things like that.
So
But
when,
it's
oh,
not that they're not there.
yeah, so when you're working with people, you're actually kind of, I guess, opening their eyes in a sense. And I don't necessarily mean eyes from, just seeing. It's more about the whole person and opening their mind in a sense.
Yeah, most of us have heard the story when the Columbus ships arrived in South America. Only the shaman could see the ships. The other people just saw movement on the water, but they had no concept of a ship, so their brain did not register ship.
Oh my gosh, that's interesting. No, I'd never
No,
heard
you've
that
never heard
story.
that? No, so
No.
they didn't know that there were people actually coming to take over their lives and worlds. And that's the same thing. We are our brain doesn't process what it doesn't understand or know. So we dismiss that.
Well, I
So
do
it's
know.
it's a learning process again.
Yeah, I do know that people that have not let's necessarily seen a lot of other places, like if they just live in their one town and they don't travel, they don't go to Europe, they don't do that, that they do have a limited view of the world. So perhaps that's along the same lines too. If does that make sense, or am I going out?
Yeah, that makes sense, but that's more of a, your knowledge base. I mean, basically the brain is like a computer. It can spit out what you put in,
That's great. That's a
but
really
it
good way.
doesn't process something new right away, or it doesn't understand how to do that. It has to figure out how to do that.
Mm. So while I need to read your book, I have not done that yet. I will admit that, The Transformation Promise. You work with clients and audiences on overcoming limiting beliefs. You have a 5-step program, right? The 5 Ws. Is that something? I mean, that is something I would love to hear more about, and I think our audience would too.
Well, I called it the 5 Ws of healing and transformation because I come from a writing background. So the 5 Ws of writing is something we usually remember from high school, high school English class. But it's basically getting that clarity of the whole story. So our life is stories. We are made up of stories that we invent, happen to us, we tell ourselves. And by the way, all of them are love stories because everything in our life is about love. I mean, whether we seek to overpower people, it is a lack of love in our life. But we're always wanting, seeking, or losing love, or not having enough, or not getting the love we think we deserve. So it's all basically everything is about love. I just thought I'd throw that in here.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And now when I think about it, I mean, people talk about abandonment, people talk about, in childhood, they're not getting enough attention, even narcissistic qualities, they're seeking that love and they're not getting it. So it is all about love. I
Yeah.
never thought
Every,
about that.
everybody's story is a love story. So the thing is, if you want to heal or change something, is to get clarity about ourselves. Now, the little tricky part is that we can't see ourselves objectively.
Mm.
It's just like the eye cannot see itself. I mean, the physical eye can't see itself. So we cannot see ourselves objectively, which is where somebody like you comes in, like a coach that can help see it, you from the outside, and add that little bit of objectivity to the very subjective life we're living. So in those 5 steps, it's the what is the situation. So what is the situation you're facing right now? So I make people look at that and write that down, and then also who is affected by it, because it's never just one person. So if it's something happening in your business, it's everybody that works in that business is affected by whatever that issue is that you picked. And if it's, your physical issues, then people that need to take care of you are affected by it. So there's a whole web always attached to everything that is happening, because we can't function alone without anything in this world.
Wow. Yeah.
And,
I'm
and then once you have all the players sort of figured out that are attached to that, the next step is why does this happen? Because so it could be, you get sick because you ran yourself ragged, or you are just a workaholic and you're not paying attention to your body, or you pay too much attention to have fun and your company is falling apart. So it's just a question to ask yourself, why is this happening right now? And you don't always know the answer. So the answer to that may just be because the universe just threw you a little excitement into your life.
Could be a lesson to be learned. Eventually, you'll figure it out, right? What
So
the
it's,
why.
yeah, we're here to grow and we're here to learn. So these things do also just appear, but then that is, why is it happening right now? And that brings me to the next thing, is where is it pointing me?
Mhm.
And that's the biggest question, because if you have a traumatic event that brings you to your knees, then it is pointing you to getting on your knees, because that's what we all do. We have this like, oh my God, please, if you just help me through this, I'll be a better person. And we try to bargain with God, even if before we did not know there was a God. At that moment, he comes up and we are ready to bargain and deal ourselves out of the misery that we're encountering, or the challenge, or we want help with it. But every challenge is pointing into a direction. It's pointing into doing something different. It's pointing towards something you haven't seen. So it's always pointing to an internal growth process.
Mm. Yeah.
And whether you are in business or in your personal life, it's all personal. If it's your business, it's personal. If it's your life, it's personal. If you can attach that your or mine, if it's mine, it's personal.
Yeah. Yeah. So you speak and teach all over the world.
Yeah.
Can you, in fact, I just did a little post recently about this, that confidence is not innate. So can you talk about how you honed in on your public speaking skills to be confident, to be able to do that? I mean, all over the world.
I was probably the most afraid of public speaking person that you have ever met. I would not ever say anything in school or so. I was terrified of it.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, would have, they say that, people are not as afraid of dying as they are of public speaking. I think I was the perfect example for that, because dying to me seemed like very easy compared to saying anything in front of anybody.
Well, we want to know, where did you get the courage to do it? How did that happen?
Well, I tried to attack things that I'm not good at. So I took 5 college public speaking classes, none of which helped me. Then I did a series of past life regression, which is also something I like to do for things with fears. I mean, I'm also a hypnotherapist. The past life regression made a big difference, a huge difference, because I went through a past life where I experienced myself being the town's attraction by being executed on the marketplace. So, you get guided into the past life, and here I am, the executioner is there with his like hood thing. I'm ready, standing there, and the whole town comes out, and it's their entertainment. I'm their entertainment. My misery is everybody's entertainment.
Wow.
And I watched them laughing and enjoying what was about to happen. And at that moment, I can't say exactly what happened, but at that moment I realized that, it doesn't really matter who you're up there, you're their entertainment. And right now it's not my misery anymore that is entertaining. And at the end of that session, I was okay with speaking.
Oh, wow.
It was, just like that. It was like, oh, okay, I'm not being executed, can't be that bad.
Yeah, you're talking about, people feared speaking more than death. You just literally had them linked together in a past life. And once you found that, you were able to release it then.
Yeah. And then after that, I discovered a wonderful program. It's called Speaking Circles.
Mm.
It's Lee Glickstein is the person that facilitates that. And he's still around. I don't think he does any more live events, but I went to a live weekend workshop. My friend dragged me to it. He said, okay, we both don't like public speaking. We got to get over this. I found this thing. So we went there, and it was really amazing, because when you take your speaking class, they teach you, like, imagine those people in a derogatory way, like in
Like
their
naked or
underwear,
something.
naked, or being ugly or whatever.
Mhm.
And I didn't like that. That never resonated with me, because I don't want to talk to people that are not wanting to hear me, that are sitting there in their underwear. That's not my idea of a good time. And I didn't like when they teach you to look over their head.
Mm.
So, like, you're speaking to the end of the room, because there's no connection there. So in Lee's workshop, he connects you with the audience, one person at a time, in a really beautiful, he's an amazing guy. And it's a really beautiful way. And I took that class, and at the end of the weekend, I went home and I was like, oh, okay, he videotapes you. And I was like, put that videotape away in the darkest corner of my closet. And my friend goes like, have you seen the video yet? And I said, no. I said, okay, I'm coming over, we're watching it together. And I said, no, not happening. I'm going to watch it, I promise. And he said, okay, you have 2 days, and then I'll come over. So I dug the video out when nobody was around. And the really funny thing was that people, whenever I spoke anywhere, people were laughing. And it irritated me, because I was not a comedian, and I wasn't talking about anything funny. And I didn't
Oh.
understand why everybody was always laughing about me, which tied back to the entertainment of the execution.
Mm.
And that happened too when we videotaped at that class. So when I watched the video, I got out of my subjective self, and I got to see myself objectively. And I wasn't talking about anything funny, but it was actually funny. I mean, even I was laughing at what I was saying and how I was presenting that. And I said, oh, they don't really mean like harm or so to me when they laugh. It's
Was
just
from
that,
enjoyment then. It was literally
yeah.
an enjoyment. Oh, wow.
So that brought that past life kind of full circle, and I've been speaking ever since.
That's fantastic. Do you have any stories about or any experience during one of those events that stands out to you?
During one of my events, or
Speaking events, yeah. Was there anything, either feedback afterwards or just anything? I mean, you've done it quite a bit and around the world. Was there anything that just an experience that kind of stood out to you?
well, I mean, the most touching experience was speaking in Germany, and this was a class about dying and preparing for death, actually, and it was
Mm,
geared. It was a very old crowd,
interesting.
and it was also about whether or not it's ethical to get help dying, and so we had all those topics. It was actually a workshop and a speaking, but at the end, one of the ladies came up to me and she said, "I'm glad I lived this long because I wouldn't have wanted to miss this one." And
Oh,
that was incredible. I was very touched by that, and she was crying when she said that.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is definitely memorable. Thanks for sharing. Wow. So you're an entrepreneur, you're an author. All of that takes courage, right? And a real good belief in yourself. So were you always confident about your abilities? And we won't talk about speaking because we just found out that whole story, but just your abilities to write and coach people and have your own business. Was that something that you were always confident about, or was that a journey? What kind of journey was that?
I don't think I'm courageous at all.
Hmm,
So I have no courage. I'm actually full of everything else but courage. But I like your title, Ladies Who Leap, because I have no courage. I just got to leap into it. It's just like, okay, if we think about this, it's never going to happen. Let's just do it and see what happens. So I'm like dive head first into the cold water and then figure out if I know how to swim.
interesting. That's a different way of looking at it too. But the fact that you even would take the first step, you do have courage, Johanna, because
You,
if you didn't, you wouldn't even say, oh, I'm going to dive into it. It wouldn't even be in your thought process. You would just be, it would paralyze you. So having confidence means that you know that you don't know everything and you know that there are going to be complications or obstacles, but you move ahead in spite of that. So you actually do have confidence.
I think it's more faith. I definitely have a faith that things will work out somehow. And if they don't work out, then you get the next life to try it over again. So I do have faith, and that somehow, somehow something will transform and happen, because nothing stays the same. So everything is evolving. But when I start having my first thought about, oh, can I really do this or so, that's already the first step to the end. So I don't think I have courage. I have faith. I have a thought. I jump on it. And sometimes it turns into something. And a lot of times, I land on the ground somewhere. But um, it's the faith that then you go, okay, let's wait for the next inspiration.
So did you write your book first or did you start the coaching first? How did that work?
I was teaching for years, so I was just teaching workshops for years. And one of my students actually said, you should have a book, not just these handouts. I'd rather have a book to take home. I'm like, okay, well, I always write just for myself. So I said, okay, no problem. I just put one together, just like a handout. And I didn't do much about it. And then he called a few days later and he said, I booked you a book signing at this bookstore in 3 months when you come teach in my town. And I'm like, you did what? I don't have a book. And he said, well, you said it was easy, so just do it. And so that's how it happened. It ended up taking me longer than 3 months. It took me a year to put it together, and I've rewritten it and just released a new edition. But I did sit down and do it, but that's the same as jumping into it. The thought of, oh, I'm going to write a book, that didn't work. That would have never worked for me.
So it's again, intuition, inspiration,
Yeah, and then just go for it and
faith.
don't think.
Yeah, and faith. Gosh, you got, those three things alone is something to really, for our listeners to really think about. And you don't always hear the leap being those kind of three things, especially the faith part, just going forward and having the faith that it's all going to work out. And if it doesn't, so what? You'll learn from it, you'll try something else, or you go into your next life and do it. That's really leaving it completely open.
What made you name this Women Who Leap?
Because I feel that truly exactly what you kind of said in a way, leaping out of your comfort zone is where that magic happens, where you have really a lot of growth and where your manifestation of your own abilities and your passions and your purpose come out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's either that or nothing. Or me doing nothing. I'd be a factory worker somewhere in a small town.
Oh, wow.
And there's nothing, wrong with that either, but I would have never done anything if I wouldn't have done it without engaging my mind
Yeah. And the fact that,
later.
yeah. And the fact that you've shared, you've taught, written the books has helped so many other people. So thank goodness that's the direction that you chose, because you have actually helped so many other people, and you wouldn't have been able to do that had you not just said, okay, I've got the faith and I'm going to take that step.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had the faith. I actually had somebody in one of my classes who grew up in communist China,
Mm.
a young lady, and she didn't understand the word faith.
Wow.
And she wanted me to explain what that is, and I couldn't. I was like, wow, I don't even know what that is, because I thought everybody was born with it. And then it turned out that there were more people in the class that did not have much faith, and they helped me explain it. Because to me that was just something everybody had.
Yeah.
I never questioned that.
But yet, wow, how many people didn't actually know what it meant? That's really interesting. I mean, some people I know don't allow themselves to dream, because a lot of us women have other people that we have to take care of them. So we go through our lives just worrying and caring for other people. We don't think about ourselves and what our dreams are, but not to have the actual faith or understand what it is, that would be so limiting. And just, I don't know, it makes me sad in a way that a lot of people don't know what that is, even faith in themselves. Even if you don't have a faith or believe in a higher being of some kind, just having the faith in yourself. And that's just so important. So,
And
actually,
that's kind of the beauty about transformation, because we're constantly transforming and changing. Nothing is the same from one second to the next. So at least you can have the faith that everything is changing. So I feel really bad. I go like, okay, well, this is going to change. May get worse and it may get better, but it's definitely not going to stay the same. And I think that alone is worth having faith that things can improve.
yeah, yeah. And then also when you make changes, the person you are today is not the person that you were yesterday or a week ago or 3 months ago. And so you have to have faith that the person you're becoming is a good thing and will lead to something better, right?
Yeah, and you can try different things out. I mean, life is pretty long, and according to the Hindus, I think we get 8 million lifetimes, so we have a lot of time to get it right.
So I'd like to end this with asking my guest, what is your favorite quote or mantra or positive affirmation that you'd like to share?
I think my favorite is, for me, is everything happens for your benefit.
Mm,
There is nothing that happens that's not beneficial.
nice. I like that. It's very positive. I like that. So would you like to share, and although I will put all this information in the podcast itself, so you'll be seeing it on the bottom, but where can people get a hold of you?
I have a website, quantumheartfield.com, which has all the information about everything on there. and how to reach me, that's probably the easiest way.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Johanna. It's been absolutely fascinating. I learned more about your work and you today than even our lunch that we had earlier this month. So I really appreciate that. And I hope and know that everybody who's listening is definitely gotten another nugget of information on how and how to have faith when you're leaping into something, a change or transformation in your life or something new that you want to go to in order to follow your passion and your purpose. So thank you, Johanna, so much. It's been really lovely having you today.
Well, thank you. It was really wonderful being here, and I'm so grateful I met you.
Me too. Me too. So now everybody that's listening has met Johanna, so you all can be grateful for that too. Have
Thank
a
you.
fabulous, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone for listening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening or watching. Please subscribe to the Ladies Who Leap podcast to be notified of new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know what works, what doesn't, and if you have a story to tell, please reach out. Come join the Leap community at the Ladies Who Leap Club Facebook group. Remember, leaping out of your comfort zone is where the magic happens.